Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Henslee,
My name's Courtney Devereux.
and we're from Baylor University, and this is our research study about true grit, and it's the difference between grit among generations of athletic trainers who are practicing athletic training at this time. So to start off, our statement of the problem, basically, thus far, no research has been done on grit in athletic trainers or definitely between generations practicing at this time. So the research in the difference in grit between generations of athletic trainers, and we were making sure and seeing if there was any correlation between job satisfaction and the type of program completed. Our statement of significance was to aid in the workplace understanding between generations and estimating if there are certain applicants that are more likely to stay in our profession. We had 3 different research questions in our study. Our first one was, is there a difference in grit among the 3 generations of athletic training? Is there a type of accredited program associated with higher levels of grit, whether it be internship route, curriculum route, masters, things like that? And is career satisfaction positively correlated with grit score? There are a few limitations to our study. First of all, we had no incentives, so this may lead to a non-representative sample between the 3 generations that are practicing at this time. We excluded only licensed athletic trainers, so this could produce a non-representative sample between the full athletic training population. We had a cross-sectional study, so basically this only captures a snapshot in time. There could be other factors contributing to the answers given in the survey, and it could lead to a non-representative sample in the different generations. This is also a self-report survey, so responses could be biased based on the perception of the participants that were studied. We had delimitations as well, so only currently working certified athletic trainers could participate. The participants also needed to be members of the NATA in order to complete the survey, and our participants needed to be characterized in one of the 3 generations, whether it was baby boomers, millennials, or the Gen X. Basically, for the overview of our study, we studied grit in different populations. And we looked at psychological factors that influence grit. We talked about the different generations. We talked about how athletic training came to be and the different routes to become an athletic trainer, especially in the past where the routes were different. And we also looked at job satisfaction between the different generations of athletic trainers who are practicing today within the different settings as well. So to start off, let's talk about grit. And grit was actually coined by Angela Duckworth, and she defined it as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. It's working towards something with a goal to achieve it and not stopping until that goal has been met, no matter the time frame, whether it be short-term or long-term, like years or decades. It's direction that's driven by passion, which entails sustained effort and interest. It's stamina. It's that never give up kind of attitude. Like, individuals are never good enough in their own eyes, and they want to become experts in their field. Participants who score high in grit are satisfied with being unsatisfied. And Angela Duckworth actually used 6 studies to validate her grit scale, and we used the 8-question short grit scale as part of our survey. Grit, there are 4 psychological factors that make up grit, and these different factors tend to develop over time and with experience. And as the person lives their life and experiences more things, these 4 psychological factors grow. So our first one is interest, and interest stems from passion. And gritty people they genuinely enjoy what they do. Practice is a factor that stems from perseverance, and individuals have to be diligent. Our purpose is gritty people see their work as not only important to them, but it's important to society, and that's their purpose in life. They also have hope, and hope is that kind of keep going through challenges that are hard to push through. So all of these factors tend to develop over time and with experience and tend to develop in this order. With this, grit may increase with age, and it could be because of generational changes or because of maturity. It's hard to tell right now at this point because we haven't done a longitudinal study in order to study all of those things.
So the three generations that we used were the baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y, who's also known as millennials. The year time frame that we used for baby boomers was 1945 to 1964. They're classified as having a work ethic that's motivated and committed, but they're also seen as being very set in their ways. Generation X is between 1965 and 1981. They're classified as resourceful, and they believe in the security of the demand for their skills, not necessarily just job security. And these people usually prefer to be self-reliant. And then Generation Y is 1982 to 2000. And these people tend to prefer collaborating, working in teams, and they strive to be efficient and effective in the workplace. So the different routes to becoming an AT, there's the curriculum route, which required more in-class time. There was a smaller number of clinical hours. The internship route required less in-class time, but you had to have at least 1,500 hours of athletic training clinical hours for that one. And then the education-based route was implemented in 2004. It's the only route that you can currently go through to get your certification, and it's currently transitioning to being a master's level program. So that one kind of combined the curriculum and the internship routes into one. So workplace satisfaction. There are different factors that impact job satisfaction. Some of the most prominent ones were ATs that work more than 60 hours a week tend to have a lower job satisfaction. And then work-family conflict is the largest indicator for job dissatisfaction and burnout. One thing that we found was the patient-centered model reduces the influence of a third party on decisions made and can decrease athletic trainers' stress. NATA actually put out a position statement recommending different workplace strategies. Some of those were increase open communication. They suggest mentoring programs, different rewards, reducing the workload if possible. They recommended individual strategies, which were to prioritize, to set boundaries between work and home life, and then to create goals that you can go towards. And then they also added in some non-workplace strategies, which were to separate work and personal time. Don't let them bleed into each other. To create a support network, live a healthy lifestyle, and have a work-life enrichment philosophy to increase your job satisfaction. There have been multiple studies that have shown a significant correlation between retention and grit, which is why we decided to look at it. And then the job satisfaction survey that we used in our research was the Short, Brayfield, and Roth survey. The original survey was an 18-item survey created in 1951. It was then adapted into the 5-item survey that we used in 1998 by Judge Locke, Durham, and Kluber.
Okay, so we'll start off with our methodology. So we created a qualitative cross-sectional study, and we used Qualtrics to implement and analyze our 21-question survey. The survey took less than 10 minutes to complete. We had demographic questions that included if they were certified, their gender, ethnicity, the year they were born, which determined their generational status, how much time they had been practicing athletic training, their workplace setting, the highest level of education completed and the type of program that they completed. We had 8 demographic questions, the job satisfaction survey, which was 5 questions, and our 8-question grit scale. So after gaining IRB approval, we obtained NATA emails from their database, and the NATA sent out 1,000 emails for us. We posted the survey on the Women in Athletic Training Facebook page and sent it to preceptors and athletic trainers at Baylor University, the University of Houston, and the University of Alabama. Emails were sent to participants on November 26th, and our survey closed on February 5th of 2020. Reminder emails were sent December 10th, 2019, January 7th, 2020, and January 14th, 2020. And those reminder emails were sent by the NATA. There was also a consent form and a description of purpose included in the survey. So again, like, participants were NATA members who were also certified athletic trainers. The exclusion criteria was not being a member of the NATA or not being certified athletic trainer. So if athletic trainers were only licensed and not certified, then they were not able to complete the study. Other exclusion criteria we used were if the survey was not 100% completed, we threw out those surveys, and those surveys were not used for counting for our research.
So the data processing and analysis that we did, we used SPSS 26 to analyze our data. We used one-way ANOVAs, we used linear regressions, and then we used frequency tables for the demographic statistics. Grit was our dependent variable, job satisfaction, generation, the program completed were independent variables, and then we had additional variables where we compared the highest level of education with grit, and then we compared generation and career satisfaction.
So with our results, we talked about our descriptive statistics first. So we had 181 completed surveys, and those are the surveys that we used in our research study. So frequency tables were used to analyze the demographics based on our survey responses. Out of 1,000 emails for NATA members, 180 surveys were started and 158 surveys were completed. That gave us a 15.8% respondent rate and an 88% completion rate with the NATA emails that were sent. We also recruited participants from the Women in Athletic Training Facebook page and others. So in total, we had 222 surveys that were initiated and then 181 completed surveys. Out of these 181 surveys that were completed and used in our study, 97% were female, 93.3% were white, and 85.6% were born between 1982 and 2000, which are the millennial generation. With our professional statistics, we had 50.8% worked 1 to 4 years, 81.2% were the education-based route, which makes sense because 85% were the millennial age, and after 2004, the only route that could be taken was the education-based route. 51.4% were working in the collegiate setting, and 74% have graduated with a master's degree. So in general, we had our average grit score between generation was 3.7 out of 5, basically. So for the highest amount of grit for the generations was 3.87, which was actually the baby boomer generation. And so you can see the grit score on the left gradually increased between generations. And on the right was our job satisfaction score between generations. And you can see it also increases between generation with an average job satisfaction score of 3.9 out of 5. So the grit score, as you can see, increased as age increased, which we were correct in our hypothesis. And also it increased with with age for the job satisfaction score as well.
All right, so our first research question was, is there a difference in grit among the 3 generations of practicing athletic trainers? We ran a one-way ANOVA on this, used an alpha level of 0.05. We received a p-value of 0.573, which means there was no significance with this statistical test for this research question. For our second research question, which was, is the type of accredited program associated with higher levels of grit? We ran a one-way ANOVA, also using an alpha level of 0.05, and we received a p-value of 0.033, so there was significance with this one. We received an R-squared value of 0.0375, so 3.76% of the variability in grit can be explained by the type of program. And in the interval plot that you see there, 1 was the education-based route, 2 is the internship route, and 3 is the curriculum route. So the one that is creating the significance was the internship route with its higher level of grit. Going off of our second research question, we decided to look at grit and the highest level of education completed. So we ran a one-way ANOVA with an alpha level of 0.05 and received a p-value of 0.047. So there was statistical significance with this one as well. The R-squared value that we received was 0.15. So 15% of the variability in grit can be explained by the highest level of education completed. For this one, the bachelor's degree, people that only received a bachelor's degree, their grit average was 3.66. For graduate degrees, which includes master's, doctorates, anything else, the grit average was a 3.82. All right, and then research question 3, which was, is career satisfaction positively correlated to grit? We did a simple linear regression using an alpha level of 0.05. We received a p-value of 0.002. And then the fitted line plot to the right, we received an R-squared value of 0.0548. So with that R-squared value and the spread of the points around the line in that graph, says that there's other variables, other X variables that impact grit besides the career satisfaction. And then going off of that research question, we looked at career satisfaction and generations. We ran a one-way ANOVA with an alpha level of 0.05 and received a p-value of 0.061, which means there was no statistical significance between career satisfaction and the generations. So research question 1, there's no generation that's automatically going to be less gritty or more gritty. It's kind of a personal basis, so you can't necessarily use that generation to determine if someone's going to stay in their job. Research question 2, the internship route had the highest number of clinical hours, so it makes sense that they're higher in grit because it's going to be, clinical hours are usually a little bit more taxing, and it's more like what athletic trainers' real jobs are. And then for the graduate degrees having a higher level of grit, there's currently no requirement for additional education. So if you're going on to get higher level degrees past a bachelor's degree, you're doing it of your own volition because you love what you do and you want to spend that time with it. So that one also makes sense with the higher level. And then research question 3, there is a positive correlation between grit and job satisfaction. Part of grit is wanting to do what you're doing, sticking with it. So normally, if you like what you're doing, you're going to stick with it. And then job satisfaction increased with age. So millennials had a job satisfaction of a 3.93. Baby boomers had a job satisfaction of 4.6, which seems like there's a big difference, but we did not have that many baby boomer respondents. So that probably contributed to there not being a significance with that test.
So back with looking at our limitations in our study after analyzing the data and collecting the data, a vast majority of our respondents were white millennial females who are working in the collegiate setting. So this could have been because we had our population from the Women in Athletic Training page. We aren't sure, but we had a vast majority of our respondents were millennial females. We did not have a lot of baby boomers who completed our survey, and this may be because they're not practicing anymore, or because they were not an NATA member, or they might not have had access to internet or the technology required in order to complete our survey. So yeah, we did not have a big diverse sample, which is a limitation in our study, and we can't generalize for all of baby boomers with just our study, with grit, job satisfaction, etc. With our future research, so the collected data can be used to investigate grit score in different athletic training settings, highest level of education, or amount of years worked. So it can also compare job satisfaction scores between each of our workplace settings. Applicants for future jobs can complete a short grit survey in order to assess their grittiness before being hired. Duckworth had actually argued that grittier individuals tend to have more success in their careers, so including they have more promotions, higher work ethic, etc. So it can definitely be used in hiring policies or procedures or things like that. Again, looking at job satisfaction for employees is really important in order to, make sure that employees are genuinely enjoying what they're doing and not having a bad time and things like that. So a lot can be done with this collected data. Unfortunately, a more longitudinal study is needed in order to have better outcomes and have more understanding about grit and job satisfaction over time. Just because what we have now is only a snapshot. And so studying grit over time would be more effective in our understanding. And here's our contact information if anyone has any more questions. We really appreciate the opportunity to present here, and we thank you guys for listening. So our references are included in this PowerPoint as well. We'll go over them really fast. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.